Will the Dallas Cowboys take care of business in week 2 and defeat the Saints? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back. I'm your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. On today's show, we are breaking down this Saints-Cowboys matchup in week 2. Landon, I want to start with the Cowboys offense in this one. They scored 30-something points last week. Now I even forget that. Was it 31, 33?
It was 30, right?
Wow.
Well, they didn't score 30 points. I think they scored 20. What is it? 20,
and that's going to be my point, right? Like,
yeah.
Last week you had the punt return for a touchdown. Mm-hmm. You had a bunch of turnovers on defense. Can the Cowboys offense be better this week? Because I thought last week they left a lot of meat on the bone, to steal a phrase from Joseph Randall.
Well, I mean, you still stole that phrase from Joseph Randall, but I'm pretty sure, was it Dak who kept on saying that phrase yesterday in the interviews? I thought it was funny that he kept on bringing it up because it did obviously remind us of Randall speaking about the lack of production, or the amount of production that was still left on the table from when he was getting on the field. And I think it's an appropriate phrase because I do think that there is meat left on the bone from Sunday in Cleveland, right? Like they clearly didn't get a ton of touches total offense. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that they were unable to convert third downs in the second half. So I do think that there is a lot of improvement that can still be done here. And I think that, that's to be expected, right? Like first game situations, it's still, like we said, September football. We talk about how the lack of preseason, that basically September is kind of the preseason for as far as, working out the kinks for these teams. So I do expect the offense to be better. I mean, obviously another week of practice with CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, and just a week of getting contact and kind of, internalizing that for some of these rookies. So I do expect that. And again, a big thing being also at home, having the first home game. These are all things that I think will, help support a better offensive performance this weekend.
Do you know the last time the Cowboys lost a regular season home game?
Oh, I would have to say it would have to be 2022, I would assume, right? I can't remember.
Week 1, 2022 against Tom Brady is the last time that they've lost a home game. Here's the thing. I think with the Cowboys playing a very tough schedule, and it gets really tough coming up with games against Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Detroit, San Francisco, they kind of have to win this game, right? Like you're at home, you're coming off a big win, you're relatively healthy. This is a game where I need the offense to kind of control the tempo and the tone of this one. I thought the defense did a great job last week, getting stops early in the game, getting turnovers, kind of allowing the offense to figure things out, get the touchdowns before halftime. This needs to be a game where like the Cowboys score 17 points or more in their first 4 drives. Like, I don't think this can't be a game where it's a slow start and you only have 3 points after 3 drives. Like, that can't happen.
Yeah, I mean, the way that the Cowboys, get into a negative game script against the Saints is they don't score points early. They settle for field goals on too many drives or no points at all, and they allow. And we'll talk about the other side of this later. But they allow the running game for the Saints to kind of run wild and Alvin Kamara to kind of go nuts. Right, that way it shortens the game, it lessens the points, and it kind of just plays right in away from what the Cowboys want to do. Right.
Yeah.
I think the Cowboys have got to come out here and, establish their offense, start being aggressive. I think that they've, had a whole game to kind of work out some of the timing stuff in the passing game, pass protection stuff. This is going to be the Cowboys. One of the other aspects that I didn't mention as far as, supporting the evidence that this should be a better offensive performance is that the Cowboys, even though the Saints are a good defense, I don't want to discount them. They're not the Browns defense, right? And no. They're not as talented as the Browns defense. So the Cowboys should have matchups here that they should be able to take advantage of and win with, especially, in comparison to what they faced last week. So better in sync, more time on task. And then combined to the fact that they're playing a little bit of a lesser defense, that there is going to be some mismatches that they can create. I think all this supports the idea that the Cowboys should and better get off to a good early start to kind of establish the tone of the game.
This needs to be a big CeeDee Lamb game for a variety of reasons, right? Their offense kind of goes as CeeDee Lamb goes. If he struggles, they have a hard time moving the ball. If he's performing well, they're getting a lot of first downs, right? So I would expect CeeDee to have a big game. Another reason why I think this has to be a big CeeDee Lamb game is Marshawn Lattimore, their star cornerback, who generally travels with the number one receiver. He missed practice on Wednesday and Thursday with a hamstring injury. We are recording this before the Saints have their Friday practice. Even if he plays, he's going to be pretty limited. The other two corners, Alontae Taylor, Paulson Adebo, good players, not anywhere of Lattimore's capability and ability. So I think this needs to be a game where it's like 6 for 60 for CeeDee Lamb in the first quarter. And that just, gets him moving, gets the offense out of some of these funks. I would expect CeeDee to have a big game.
Here's the problem with the Saints defense as it is right now, right? Like, first of all, Marshawn Lattimore has traditionally traveled with the best wide receiver at times. As the years have gone on, I think he's done that less and less.
Yeah.
And especially now that he's injured, even if he played, I can't imagine that he's traveling with CeeDee Lamb, right? He's too compromised.
I don't see it.
Yeah. So the other part of the problem there is that now that you don't have him playing, you're going to have Kool-Aid McKinstry, who I liked a lot coming out of college, but still, I mean, against, in his second game against really good wide receiver core, it's a mismatch. And then on top of that, they're starting a guy in Alontae Taylor who at nickelback, he just isn't up to snuff. And I think that the Saints found a solution to a couple different things by sending him on blitzes like
Correct.
6 times because he can't cover. And
I think he had 3 sacks.
Yeah. And they can't cover and they can't rush the passer. So they have to have send all these guys. If you watch the game, they clearly did not feel comfortable getting home with with just their pass rushers, right? That's why they kept on sending the nickelback 4 times and linebackers and that sort of thing. So it is a situation where they're going to be aggressive and there's going to be lots of blitzing, but this is not a case where Dennis Allen is an incredible defense coordinator. Yes. I am not poo-pooing him, but this is not a case where, Dennis Allen is a madman. He's sending all this stuff. No, I don't think I can get home with my pass rush, and my nickelback isn't very good in coverage, so I might as well just send the house because I just don't have time to kind of, get into my coverages and be successful here. I'm just going to put all the pressure on Dak by sending a bunch of bodies. So there's a lot of mismatches in the back end of this defense. They know that, and they're probably going to end up trying to sack Dak instead of trying to let him sit back there and see if they can, get open.
That's why I expect Ezekiel Elliott to play a lot in this game.
Yeah.
Right? Still have a rookie left tackle making his second start. It's Chase Young, who is an incredible athlete. Cam Jordan on the other side. They'll probably keep Zeke in on a lot of early downs to pass protect, because I do think if you give Dak time against the secondary without Marshawn Lattimore or even a hamper Marshawn Lattimore, they should be able to create some big plays in the passing game, I would think.
Yeah, and I also think that offensively, we're going to see sort of a different game plan than we did against Cleveland, right?
Yes.
I think in Cleveland, there was a very much a concerted effort to get Dak out on the edge, to move the pocket around, to not put stress on the young offensive tackle facing the defensive player of the year. I mean, obviously, there's still that stress. You still have a very young player on the left side. Chase Young is a fine player, but he's not Myles Garrett by any stretch of the imagination. So maybe you'll see a few more 5-man protections and more receivers out en route than we saw versus Cleveland. And I do think also that they will feel like they can run the football a little bit better against this front than the Cleveland front. The Saints have 2 very solid solid linebackers. and Demario Davis and Pete Warner. But I don't think that these are guys that you are going to shy away from attacking in the run game, especially, JOK last week. I mean, he could cover the entire field horizontally. So these other guys aren't quite that level of athlete. So I think that there is hay to potentially be made in the C gap. If you want to run some stretch plays, see if he can get to the second level. You're going to have some success in the run game, and then that hopefully will open things up in the pass game as well.
All right, let's talk about the Saints' new look offense with Klint Kubiak running it. How will the Cowboys try to contain Derek Carr in week 2? We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you hire the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In any given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That is linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It's the only sportsbook that I use when I place my bets. But we've got something a little bit different for you this week. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you're going to be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. And if that's not enough, be sure to check out FanDuel's Profit Boost in the app and use it for FanDuel's Double Your Winnings for all of Sunday, September 15th. Pre-game moneyline bets. Profit Boost will be live starting yesterday, Thursday, September 12th. View your account page now to learn more about your boost. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go check out the new Locked On NFL show. We've got 2 shows every single day, one in the morning with Tyler Rowland, one in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins. Add in the Locked On local experts, and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL on YouTube. Get it wherever you get your podcast. All right, later, let's talk about this Cowboys defense against Derek Carr. The Cowboys have not had a lot of success against Derek Carr, believe it or not, in the past. They actually lost to him. I'm trying to think what year that was, 2018, 2019, in that weird Thanksgiving game. The Saints offense was dreadful last year, but this is a completely new offense with Klint Kubiak running it. How do you think the Cowboys match up here?
Well, let's talk about some names here, right? Kubiak, that should be a familiar name to Cowboy to football fans, right? Obviously, his dad is the Gary Kubiak, the head coach of the Denver Broncos when Manning was the quarterback, and Gary Kubiak was a quarterback and an assistant for Mike Shanahan back when he was playing with the Denver Broncos, and then he traveled with them to San Francisco. So Kubiak and Shanahan are names that are very heavily associated with each other, and their offenses are obviously heavily associated with each other. They are all disciples of Alex Gibbs, who is the godfather of offensive line play, the wide zone. And so all of these kind of very familiar elements are going to be in this Kubiak offense, right? The zone run stuff, the bunched formations, the condensed formations, the that's all the things that we would expect to see when you play Miami or San Francisco or any of these groups that have, a Shanahan trees. You're going to see all that stuff. And obviously for Cowboys fans, that's a little triggering. The Cowboys have had a lot of problems against these Shanahan offenses. So part of the reason they brought in Mike Zimmer was to combat these offenses. So I would expect to continue to see more too high looks, whether that's Tampa to, or cover 4, cover 6, cover 8, simply because you're going to see a lot of bunched formations and condensed stuff. And whenever you have that, you want to make sure you have balanced looks on either side of the field so you can easily combat all the motions and all the eye candy stuff that they're going to do before the snap. And I think you look at the game last week against Carolina. Carolina was just completely overmatched in all aspects, in all 3 phases of the game. But on defense, especially, they really don't have a ton of weapons that they can attack the Saints with. And the ones that they did have, the Derek Brown, the JC Horn, they got very well neutralized by the way that the Saints attacked the Panthers. So I think for the Cowboys, they're going to win by making Derek Carr uncomfortable, right? Because what Carr does better than a lot of other folks is that he may be one of the very best flag football quarterbacks in all of the NFL, right?
He's got a fantastic arm too.
He does. And he knows what he's doing. He knows how to run an offense. He knows where his help is. You're not going to fool him necessarily. Now, where you will get him is you start hitting him, because then he starts panicking. His processor starts going too fast. He starts making bad decisions. He will throw the ball into the other team's hands. He will fumble the ball if you hit him enough. And the Cowboys, I think, especially when you look at the injury situation that's happening on the offensive line for the Saints, potentially they may be missing their starting rookie left tackle, who we loved coming out of college. So did Dallas. May not be able to make it to the game. It sounds like their left guard. Am I right? Potentially, maybe out for this game.
Yep.
So this could be a situation where they're compromised on their left side. Zimmer is obviously excellent at pressing those issues. And so the Cowboys, I think, main situation is going to be to try to attack Derek Carr. And as you and I talked about before the game, that will probably respond with them trying to play a more self-contained short passing yard game. I would imagine, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, so I had the ability to cover Derek Carr for several years.
Yeah,
he was with the Raiders. So a little insight. Derek Carr is not a quarterback that you want to blitz, because one of the things he'll do is he'll back up and he can throw off his back foot. And when he gets blitzed, he throws the ball down the field. Most quarterbacks don't do that, right? And it's because they don't have the arm to do it. And I think against Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave, 2 receivers that can fly on the outside, I don't think that's a viable strategy. Like, I don't think you want to blitz. I mean, you want to obviously blitz here or there, but you don't want to have 50% of your plays on third down be blitzes, because you're just going to get crushed. Now, what makes Carr interesting is that if you play off coverage, he's got no problem at all just dumping the ball underneath and getting 5 or 6 yards on every single play and never challenging you downfield. There was a game last year, Landon, that you and I were talking about pre-show, where I believe Alvin Kamara had 16 catches. And it was just one of these games where he's going to dink and dunk and dink and dunk. And it's so frustrating to watch, but you don't want to necessarily blitz him either. So you get kind of caught up into a catch-22 here. However, the way to beat Derek Carr is you've got to rush with your front 4. And if they're missing Talis Fuaga at left tackle, and if they're missing Lucas Patrick at left guard, Trevor Penning is Trevor Penning on the right side. Like, you should be able to get pressure with your front 4. And that's when Derek Carr really struggles. That's when he turns into a bad quarterback, because now he's going to try to fit passes into tight windows, and that's just not his strength.
Yeah, there were 2 games last season in which Kamara had more than 12 receptions, right?
And he missed a good chunk of the season with a suspension.
Against Jacksonville and against Tampa, both of those games they lost, right?
Yeah,
and that was ultimately my point when we were discussing before preseason, is that I do think that before the show, I do think that you're right, that they will attempt to try to do this, to try to face to dink and dunk and try to move up and down the field, like, with small bits, try to be patient. I don't think that that's a winning formula against the Cowboys, right? Especially against the Cowboys playing at home. So I think that they may try to kind of get into that rhythm and try to hope that they can contain the Cowboys offense and then try to slow the whole game down and then just take what they can against a cover 2 defense. But I have a feeling that game plan probably won't last until past the second quarter, right?
It's why getting an early lead is so important for Dallas, right? Absolutely. Like, make them one-dimensional. I should mention Taysom Hill. Like the Taysom Hill experience. Well, I mean, they just continue to add packages for Taysom Hill. And at one point I thought this is ridiculous, but they were using him as like an actual running back last week, like giving him sweeps and actual running back carries. And he looked pretty good. Like Taysom Hill's the actual weapon now. The Cowboys don't need to go all out to stop him, but he is a useful player that could have an impact in this one.
Honestly, I think the use is baked in, right? The usefulness is baked in. I think simply by handing him off the football a couple different times, now you have to plan for that during the week. Now you've got to like practice that. And I think that's the genius that Sean Payton kind of unlocked with this player is that, is the ultimate like production that Taysom Hill puts on the field astounding? No, it's useful. It's very useful. But I think that ultimately what we don't see is the kind of hidden yardage aspect of all the time during the week that their opponents have to spend on planning for this thing that may or may not even happen more than 1 or 2 snaps. And that's, 30 or 45 minutes less planning that you have on their normal offense. Right. Yeah. So I do think that's an interesting wrinkle, and you just have to be ready for when Taysom's out there that, he can kind of do a little bit of everything. So you kind of just have to expect a little bit of everything.
All right, Layla, let's make our predictions for week 2, Saints at Cowboys. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike on other apps, PrizePicks it's just you against the numbers. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. I absolutely love PrizePicks. It's so much fun. I do it every single week. Now, for you to get it to play, all you have to do is download the PrizePick app today and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL, one word, and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even have to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Every day, as we will be back on Monday to break down the Saints-Cowboy game, win or lose. But Landon, I got a feeling you don't expect the Cowboys to lose here on Sunday.
No, I mean, I think it's just going to be a tough game for the Saints. The Cowboys are playing their first home game. The Cowboys have traditionally been very good at home, as we just mentioned the last year. I just think that there's a lot of kind of positive stuff going for them. I think that that's happening with the Saints too, right? Clearly they had a huge win against Carolina, but I think much like, the rest of the NFL or people that pontificate on the NFL, I wonder if the Saints aren't looking at their win from last week and going, how much of this is us being really good and how much of us is this because the Panthers are really bad. Yeah. So I'm picking the Cowboys to win. I think it's going to be something like 31-24. I just think that, the Cowboys are going to be able to move the ball on the ground. And I think it's going to open things up even more for the passing game, which, it's just going to be a difficult, assignment for the Saints defense, especially if they're missing Lattimore. So I think that the Cowboys are going to be able to move the ball and score points. And then on the other side of the ball, I do think that the Saints will find a way to kind of get loose and score some points.
I think they're going to hit a couple big plays.
Probably. But I do also think that they are going to have, at points, a very rough day. It's just going to be a very difficult task to try to protect Carr with the passers the Cowboys have and the way that they are, calling these games right now and the situation with the injuries. So I imagine that the Cowboys kind of grab a hold of this game a little bit early. The Saints don't quite give in, but the Cowboys are in control of it throughout the most of the game, and they win by a touchdown.
Yeah, I know this is probably the jinx of all jinx, but I'm picking the Cowboys to win as well. I mean, how I don't do this very often, Landon, but
he doesn't.
I do think we need to give the Cowboys some credit. They've been a very good home team. Now, again, the playoffs are a different story. They obviously had that game against the Packers last year that we want to forget, but I just get the feeling the Cowboys are going to want to come out and make a statement early in this game and really try to get the crowd into it. Usually Mike McCarthy likes to defer the ball and get it in the second half, but I wouldn't be surprised if they win the toss, if they want to try to get it early to get points on the board and really get this crowd going. So I'm going to take McCarthy and the Cowboys to win this game because I really think they need it. I also think they need it for their confidence boost of like, hey, we're a good team. We're a really good home team. Let's make sure that we defend our home turf. They're healthier than what the Saints are right now. Again, knock on wood. We'll see about Jake Ferguson's status. I would assume he doesn't play. But what do you think?
Yeah, I've kind of landed on I'm on a 50-50 situation with him at this point, right? Because
I kind of hope he doesn't play, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that they should err on the side of caution and potentially like let him sit just one more game just to kind of get clear of it. If it really is that close, let's get clear of it. I don't know that the Cowboys need Jake Ferguson to beat the Saints, So
well, the other thing is like I know that Jake Ferguson is saying there's no pain, but he also didn't practice on Wednesday or Thursday. Like I'd rather have him get, even if it's a couple limited practices in before he plays. I would just rather have him be fully healthy than have him be 85% and get hurt again.
He says that there's no pain, but he's also wearing a knee brace for stability reasons, which to me is like, man, let's get to a place where you don't need to wear a knee brace for stability reasons before we like put you back out of there when we need you.
Yeah. So I'm going to pick the Cowboys to win. I'm going to go. I think it's going to be a closer game because I do think the Saints have a very good defense. They've got one of the best kickers in the league, and Will Lutz, who I think is going to be able to knock some really long field goals in this one. So I'm going to pick Dallas 28-24. But a game, like you said, where I think the Cowboys will control it for most of the game. Listen, here's a weird thing, Landon. I could see this game being a blowout for Dallas because there's been so many of these where once Dallas gets a lead, they just blow these things open. It's kind of been a thing under Mike McCarthy. Like you look at how many close games they played at home over the last 3 years, and there's not very many. Like there's really not very many. But if they get behind and they're having to fight their way out of it, that's what I think it could get a little hairy.
If it gets into the, curse of the noon game script, they come out flat. They can't get anything going early on. The Saints come out and are looking good. This could definitely be one of those games where, the Cowboys don't wake up until the second half. And then it becomes a much more 50-50 ball game as to whether or not the Cowboys can catch up and score the points they need to win, or if it's too little too late because they just never woke up. That's what I worry about in terms of like game scripts where the Cowboys lose is, they have had problems with noon games, right? Like, just kind of looking a little sleepy coming out of the gate. And they've let teams even at home jump all over them because those teams are excited to be playing. They are aware of the situation. They're not lackadaisical, and they just beat the Cowboys' energy early on. So Cowboys need to match and or beat the Saints' energy early, get a hold of this game and not let go.
Should be a fun one. Again, we'll be here on Sunday, probably maybe Sunday night, Monday morning, breaking it all down. We haven't decided yet. We'll figure it out.
One of those two.
Yeah, one of those two.
We'll be here for you.
Go check out the Locked On Cowboys podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Check us out on YouTube as well. Go check out the new Locked On NFL show. 2 shows every single day. 1 in the morning with Tyler Rowland, 1 in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins. They both do a fantastic job. Go follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosier. And enjoy the game. We'll see you right back here on Monday.